Oliver, do you go to conventions, Comicon, anime cons, E3, any sort of?
Yeah, I went to one because we had the one in London. And I thought I'd go there and be so inappropriate pervert on all the hot girls that were there. I'd have a great time. But no, I went there, and it's kind of, I felt like an outsider, like I thought like I would do in this thing. I feel like an imposter Zelda fan, really, because I'd done all the research for the script, so I know the kind of franchise as good as I can know it. But like, I'm kind of not one of these diehard fans who gets really passionate about things and comments on stuff.
Well, those people are geeks, so
yeah. But so it's kind of weird, but. Thank you, Simon, for helping me out today. It's very good of you. I kind of went once, and it was kind of. I just remember one time where like I was with this other guy, and everybody else. Like, you feel like a real outsider. Like, people get so passionate about it. I don't know a lot of stuff. Like, even with games, I'm not 100% completion kind of guy. I do the main quest, and I go, that was all right. And put the game down and walk away. And I was with this guy who was clearly like this, who was there. We were sitting around a comic store, and I've drawn from a very early age. I'm not a world's best illustrator, but I think of myself as fairly competent now. Only in the past 2 years do I think of myself as fairly competent. But we're sitting there appreciating this guy's. He did a Spider-Man manga, kind of, but very old Japanese influenced. And as he was kind of doing his web shooters things, it was Japanese characters coming out, and it looked really cool. And we're like there looking at each other going, yeah, we're outsiders. We know. We had a moment between us and then walked away, and that was the end of the story. It's an anticlimactic story, but one that's not worth sharing.
My only good convention story I have, I was going to a local anime con, and well, it was anime and Comic-Con, but I think it was more focused on anime. A few members of the cast from The Walking Dead were there, and at this point, I knew what The Walking Dead was, but I had really no idea what it was. I didn't know it was this huge popular thing, and they were kind of in the hallway selling comics and signing pictures and stuff, and then the room to get into where the main section was, that's where the line was. So as I was standing in line, I was standing right beside these famous actors that a lot of people were in line just to see them, but I was just standing there, and I was having a conversation with another person that was in line with me, and then at the same time I was having a conversation with one of the actors that I didn't realize was one of the actors. And after about 5 to 10 minutes, it seemed like they had that look in their eyes that's like, are you not going to ask for an autograph? Do you not know who I am? And it was just this awkward moment, because it was just that moment of realization towards like, oh, this is the person everybody else is lined up to talk to, and I'm wasting their time. Because
I kind of like, I thought it was really interesting because just thinking about the film going on there is this kind of thing to some people that you are like, they loved what you did and you can do no wrong, and then to other people you can die in a fiery death and they would cheer and cheer brightly and then tweet about it on YouTube or Twitter. They wouldn't tweet about it on YouTube. That's next year. That's coming out.
Right.
But it's kind of this weird place that actors come from. That it's just kind of like, I feel like I had a little microcosm with it like this. It's like they don't know who knows them, and they just. It's better to pretend like you do, because then you don't come across like a huge arsehole.
Right.
And so sometimes it's kind of like this moment where he's going to go, are you going to ask for an autograph? Or am I not as famous as I thought? What a humbling moment for me. I can imagine that was exactly what he was going with.
That's, it's similar to, I was watching an interview with, I believe his name was TJ something. He was the actor. He has red, poofy, curly hair. He was in the newest he was in the newest Transformers movie. He died sort of early on. He was in She's Out of Your League. He did voice acting work in the new Big Hero 8 movie.
Big Hero 6?
Yeah, Big Hero 8's the sequel. That's also coming out.
Oh, okay. Who did he play in Big Hero 6?
One of the people. He's also, if you see the Mucus commercial, he plays the Snot character.
Okay. What was the actor's
Welcome
name
to
again?
another interactive section of the podcast. Google him, everybody.
Alright, I'll Google it real quick. But he was
I think I know who you're talking about. He played Fred.
TJ.
I think he played Fred in Big Hero 6.
Right. But he's also a stand-up comedian, which is where he started out. And he says something. He plays Tough Nut in How to Train Your Dragon, I think.
Okay.
TJ Miller is his name.
Yeah, I think
Anyways.
he plays Fred in Big Hero 6.
I think Simon and I are just going to nod and smile.
Big Hero 6 is wonderful.
He had an interview where he was saying where he's been in a few movies. Some weren't that popular, some are. He said he's famous enough to where he'll get off an airplane at an airport and somebody will come up to him. It's only one or two people that recognize him. And they'll be like, I know who you are. You're that person from that movie. Hold on, I have it in my head. Don't tell me. And then he's like, well, it's from where I was in. And then they'll stop and be like, nope, I'll think of it. Hold on. And then he has to sit there for like 5 or 10 minutes because he doesn't want to be rude to the fans. But at the same time, he just got off of a plane and he has to hurry and get to a business meeting. So he's stuck in this awkward conversation where someone thinks they know who he is, but they aren't sure.
Yeah, one of my favourite ones was when like some people are a little famous. Like there's a comedian in the UK called Ed Byrne, and he's like a little famous. Where some people, like the people know who he is, can't imagine that nobody else doesn't know who he is, but the other people think he's a friend of theirs. Like it's like I clearly know your face,
Yeah.
and so like, hey, how you doing? And they pretend to have a conversation like they're friends, but they can't remember the guy's name. So they're trying to fish his name out in very cunning and devious ways.
This reminds me, I was listening to a podcast last night by Kevin Smith, if you guys know who that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was a weird crossover episode with Greg Miller and the Kind of Funny crew that used to be at IGN. They did a podcast with Kevin Smith from like all the Clerks movies and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And they were talking about how one day Jason Mewes, who plays Jay and is one of Kevin Smith's best friends, went to IGN to have an interview. And while they were walking around outside of the building to go get lunch and food and stuff, there were people that came up to them while they were in the group and thought Jay was just some normal person. They didn't know that he was like a millionaire celebrity. So they handed him the camera and was like, hey, can you take a picture of me with Greg Miller? And then,
That's adorable.
yeah, and it's like, Kevin Smith went on to say that it's like, you can have 2,000 or 3,000 people that you mean the absolute world to, and once you find some of those people, their knowledge of every other actor in the world is just completely blank because they're such diehard fans. And it was just like that moment that's like, I don't know, I could just imagine being there and like feeling where he's been in so many movies and he's been on TV and stuff, to have somebody not recognize you and then want you to take a picture of them with the less popular person. It's just, I don't know, there's something about that that's just so comedic.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. But what about you, Simon? Do you have any convention stories?
I do not.
Well, what are your thoughts of them? Because I know from if you've never been to one and you're looking at it from the outside, you're just like, oh, it's a bunch of people, they dress up, they go to this place, and that's it.
Yeah, I think it's like a realm of secrecy. They dress up and they go inside, and we don't know what goes on in there. It's I don't.
Sometimes it's best not to.
What's that? What happens at Comicon stays at Comicon.
Yes.
It's a
Right.
Big Bang
Yeah.
Theory plot point right there.
I will say that one of the greatest things about conventions, whether it's a big one like Wizard World or any of the other New York Comicons or anything like that, or even E3, most people that are strongly into geek culture feel if they let people know how much they're into certain things, like if they're a really die-hard fan of the Hulk, they have hundreds of Hulk comic books or statues or pictures on their wall, and they're 13 to 30 or even in their 40s, they'll feel kind of like stranded to the rest of the world because they're like, oh, people are going to look at me, think that I'm just some geek or some nerd, but they don't know that I have an actual life. I have a job, I pay my own bills, have a car, I do all this stuff, I have a normal life. I would just rather read comic books than go out every weekend and start drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't really find anyone else to communicate their love of video games or comic books or movies or TV shows or whatever with. So whenever they're able to go to these conventions, they're able to meet hundreds and sometimes thousands of other people that are into the exact same thing that they are just as much as they are. So it's this really special event that if you're lucky enough to go to, especially with people that are into the same thing as you, it's pretty much like a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
That's what I love about conventions so much, because I mean, I was always just a total loser, and so it's like I go to a convention, and all of a sudden I get to dress up like Misty from Pokemon, and all of a sudden that's a cool thing, and that would be something I used to be made fun of for playing Pokemon all the time. Because I mean, like I said, I was a total loser. Nobody else wanted to play Pokemon with me.
Right.
I was that weird girl that sat and played video games instead of going to dances with everybody. I was the weirdo. I was so not cool, and so like it really hasn't even been since like, I guess since I started writing for Zelda Universe or working for Zelda Universe a couple of years ago, that like all of a sudden I felt I actually belong around people, which is kind of cool. And like I go to conventions and they're like, oh wow, there are other people like me out there. I'm not as much of a loser as I thought I was.
I remember a few years ago at the first convention that I went to, I actually went there on sort of a date with this girl I was talking to at the time. But it was like...
That's how you find out if she's a keeper. Right?
Exactly.
That's it. Take her to Comicon. She can't take it. She's gone. I don't care how old she is.
No,
Gone.
it was like, we got there, and I'm looking around, I'm seeing people dressed up from different costumes and stuff, from different animes, and there's Spider-Man, Power Rangers, and all these people, vampires, tons of zombies. There's always zombies. And I was standing in line outside, and around the corner of the building walks this guy that's at least 5 inches taller than I am, and I'm 6'1". Don't know how many centimeters that would be for you, Oliver, but...
No, we still do. We still have a mixture of the imperial and metric system, so we still measure height in feet and inches of it.
I would just be listed as really freaking tall.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
This guy was like 6'5", 6'6", pretty much a giant. And he had the exact body shape, so it was perfect. But he came walking around the corner, and he's in this big robe, and he's dressed like Ganondorf from The Wind Waker, and looks exactly like him. And then as I'm watching him, he goes inside the building, and around the corner comes these 4 short 5'2", 5'3" girls that are all like the same height, dressed up as each Link from Four Swords Adventure.
Aww.
And they're like, they each have their foam swords and shields and everything, and they're dressed up in like perfect tunics, and they just match perfectly. And I don't know if like they're with the person dressed up like Ganon, but it just matched so awesome. And that was the moment that I was like, because I got there at first and I was like, I like comics, but I don't love them. I'll read them if I have them. If I see a cool one, I'll buy it, but I'm not going to go out of my way to collect comics. And it's the same with everything else. And this is really my only passion is like music and Zelda and maybe a couple of other things. So it was like to see other people around the area where I live that love Zelda enough to dress up in their costumes and stuff, whether it be like some grown 40-year-old man dressed like Ganondorf, or these people that were around my age dressed like the Four Swords Links. It was awesome.
Actually, there's a story from when we shot, because we all had to go out and get lunch. We were shooting in a little crypt church, and Ori is still in full Link costume, head to toe, as we go around to a kebab shop. Right, and he was getting people stopping and asking to take pictures, and he's like posing, you know, going, hey, I love this, you know, people think I'm famous, and you know.
And then he's like, thank you for wanting my picture, and they're like, you're not supposed to talk.
Yeah, exactly. But there was a really interesting documentary that was just released on the BBC. I don't know if it's on BBC America yet, but I don't know if you get a version of iPlayer at all in America. Do you get that at all? It's like the on-demand. iPlayer is like the BBC's version of the on-demand services that you get.
Oh, okay.
The BBC is one of the most uniquely situated channels in the sense of it's the only one in the world because it's funded by the licensor. We actually have to pay £10. I think £10 a month, and that all goes to the BBC. And it's like it's a weird thing from how it started, and it's publicly funded. So this is the reason you have things like BBC America, which you have a completely different channel to anything we have. We don't know what you get when you get it. It's kind of crazy. But Tom Felton, as I digress again, Tom Felton did this documentary on going to conventions and meeting the fans. I don't know if you know who he is. He's Draco Malfoy in Harry Potter.
I love Harry Potter so much.
Well, I only know who he is because I have to say this because my roommate likes introducing to me everybody we meet. I played Harry Potter's shadow in the second film because I did the acting when I was young. I was signed to an agency, and so the first 3 films I did extra. Yeah, well, what happened was you need a license to shoot in the UK to have films, and kids can only shoot for 9.5 hours a day. They have to be off the kind of set or the location at that point in 9.5 hours. Otherwise, it's illegal and they're not supposed to be shooting there. So they have people to shoot like doubles and stuff like that. All the doubles that have gone home. Daniel Radcliffe has gone home, and they run into this extras pit and they go, "You'll do." Drag me out. I get on this golf cart with this mentalist, like these guys who drive all the actors around inside the sets. Like they're all crazy. Like it's like their dream is to be in Formula One as they're going on 2 wheels around the corner and speeding around the thing. And I'm going like I'm in secondary school, early on in secondary school, so I'm having a great time on this go-kart wheeling around. And then they say, "Can you they put a model of Dobby there and then they shot the back of my head looking at Dobby, and they obviously shot a clean plate as well for the effects. And then they photoshopped me out the back of my head because it looks nothing like him. And so the only thing that's left in the shot is my shadow. So I'm looking at the shot, I said, that kind of looks like the shot I would have been in, but that's not the back of my head. It doesn't look like me at all. They've cut me out. They've literally done as much as they could to get me out of the film. And so that's the one thing. But, being on set for kind of like the 6 months, was kind of more 6 months on the first one, less and less on the others. I shot for long periods of time. I kind of see these guys peripherally around and kind of meet them briefly. And they're never going to remember who I am, but I remembered Tom on the set, and he had this really likable energy. Because all the extras are really bitter that they're not, being lead actor. Oh, I could be an actor. It was like a bunch of old people, but really young, right? It was just like the show we have called Grumpy Old Men, right? And literally it was like all these kind of kids moaning about why they weren't in the lead roles. But this guy comes along and he has this energy about him that nobody hates him. Everybody's like, oh no, he's really nice. He's a good one. And so he did this documentary and went around and met them. And because they grew up on these sets, they didn't grow up in the culture. They grew up already being this pinnacle moment. And so he was like, and he had a super fan, and he found it a bit weird. And so when he went through it, but it was kind of interesting when you saw what it did for people. Like, these people were never that you thought they were. They're all fully rounded and had kind of fascinating reasons of how they found franchises that they fell in love with and what they did. It was a really good documentary. It's definitely worth a watch. I've spoken for a very long time, so I'll let somebody else speak.
Amanda, I don't think you went into full detail on your convention stories.
I love going to conventions. They're so much fun. I do Dragon Con, MomoCon, and because they're both here in Atlanta, and then I do E3 in LA. and they're all just amazing. E3 is great because, I mean, obviously it's freaking E3, but just getting to meet everybody else is just meet up with so many people who love games just as much as I do. It's really cool.
And some of the, I was going to say sorry to interrupt you, but some of the bigger conventions like E3 is really the only place that a lot of people from Zelda universe actually meet up with each other.
Right, so it's like a great big, I guess, family reunion in a way, because getting to see everybody, it's so great. And I mean, I get to see some of them on occasion outside of E3, but for the most part, that's the only time you get to see each other is E3. And Dragon Con was my very first ever convention, and it's original here in Atlanta. I think it's one of the biggest ones in the country. And that's where I did my very first ever cosplay, and I was I was like, oh gosh, first time cosplaying. My first time cosplaying, I did Slave Leia, and my husband and we made that freaking costume ourselves. That costume, oh my gosh, I was crying making that costume. It was so hard to make. And so, like, we're walking around and all of my friends are like, you're going as Slave Leia, you're gonna get molested. I'm like, nobody is going to mess with me. First of all, I can kick anybody's butt that wants to try. But second, nobody's going to, and I'm gonna have Dan with me and my little nephew. No one's gonna say anything.
And the stamina potion as well.
Exactly,
so,
and the stamina
keep
potion.
it going.
I can kick butt. Like I said, you saw this muscle earlier. I can kick people's butts. And so I'm like walking around. Nobody gave me any problems, but it was just so cool, like being stopped to take pictures with people. Like everybody, like I walked 5 feet, and they'd stop me to take a picture. And it was just so funny because like people would thank my husband for me wearing the costume, and he's like, it was her idea. She's the one that wanted to do it.
Yeah, he's probably like, you really think I wanted my wife showing off her body to thousands of people?
Yeah, he's like, I don't care if she wants to wear it, but no, it was not my idea, it was hers. And so then the next year I was Slave Leia again and did some retouches on the costume.
Get your money's worth out of the costume.
Exactly.
Right? Ages making that costume.
Exactly.
I'm gonna wear it again.
Wear that daggone costume. So then the next year, like, I did some retouches on it. I got like a nicer new braid that's actually my hair color, so it looks like I had a really, really long red hair, which was kind of cool. But I just remember the day of the Slave Leia photo shoot. When you do the Slave Leia photo shoot, first of all, photo shoots are exhausting. And I've even had directors tell me before, if you are not exhausted at the end of a photo shoot, you have done something wrong. You wouldn't think that sitting there looking pretty and smiling would be exhausting, but oh my gosh, you were like ready to pass out by the end of it.
I think sitting on the couch is exhausting, so I'm there with you.
So yeah, not to mention, you don't eat before a Slave Leia photo shoot. You just don't. Because, I mean, even just drinking very much is going to leave your stomach looking all bloaty and stuff, and you want to look good in the pictures. I mean, you can pig out all you want as soon as it's over. But I just remember walking through the food court and just going, this is not fair. Because it was like at lunchtime, and there's like French fries all over the place. I'm like, I'm so hungry right now. And I think I was in that photo shoot for 2 or 3 hours, and then I finally, once it was over, I like ran and got tacos. But what's great is my boots had horrible traction, and so when I went to get my soda, like when I went to go get a Coke, my foot slipped on the floor. I almost went into a split in the middle of Lily's taco place, and one of my tacos flew out of the bag onto the floor. I mean, this was like pure comedy gold. I wish somebody had a camera to have gotten that. Because that was pretty great.
Secretly, you have a viral video on YouTube.
There's secretly a viral video of a Slave Leia wiping out and losing her tacos. But, oh my gosh.
It's basically, it's a still, and it's got a little meme at the bottom, and it just goes, Leia trying to use the Force. You know, that's...
Well done, well done. But yeah, I love doing conventions, and it's something that my nephew gets to come along and do as well. It's something he gets to enjoy. So I love that something like my husband and my nephew and I can all do together. It becomes like kind of a family thing, and I just love getting to dress up in all these characters. But speaking of meeting celebrities that you didn't realize you were meeting celebrities, there was one year, it was Dragon Con weekend, and at the time I was working for a haunted house just outside of Atlanta, and I had like the lead role in the haunt, and so I was like a vampire or whatever. And so we were at a golf tournament promoting the haunt because it was like all these different businesses had these different tournament tables things. They do this at country clubs all the time. And so we had a table set up. So I'm there in my costume, fangs. My hair was dyed black at the time. I'm in my like leotard and tights and boots and all that stuff. 100 degrees out, of course. So I'm on a golf cart with like the guy that was taking me over there, and he stops and we talk to this really tall guy, and so we're talking and he's asking me about the haunt. I'm like, yeah, I work there, it's a lot of fun, I have a speaking role, I've been acting since I was 12, it's great, I love acting. And so it's some of it's just silliness, and I'm playing a vampire. And so afterwards, like, he goes, and the guy that was working the golf cart with me, he goes, so do you know who that was? I was like, no, should I? And he's like, have you ever seen Buck Rogers? And I was like, yeah, like the old reruns? Of course I have. He goes, yeah, that was Buck Rogers. I was like, what? You didn't tell me this beforehand? I could have said I watched that show. I would watch the reruns with my mom. And so here I am acting with freaking Buck Rogers, like I'm like some big shot going, yeah, I'm an actor.
That's hilarious.
That's a good story. I was this because I went back to Conti's. It's a stage school here, and they did a reunion thing. I ended up going back to one. One of the people that's come from there is Pixie Lott. I don't know if is Pixie Lott big in the States. Because some pop artists translate over, some don't. But like she's really big over here, and there's people like, oh yeah, Pixie Lott's here. I am now old. I do not know who modern pop artists are, and I was kind of like, oh right, is she famous? She's standing right behind me, and I'm like, oh hello, you make music, do you? Well done. I couldn't have been more of a dick if I tried. I didn't know who she was. Like I got like, oh, well done with your music. That's fantastic. You're selling stuff, brilliant. like she's some kind of really small artist, and she's going off making £200,000 music videos the next day. You know, she's kind of like it. You just always end up going, probably should have said some different things.
Oh my gosh, that reminds me so much. I was in a musical adaptation of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It was really bad. I played Mr. Tumnus, and yeah, Mr. Tumnus. And I was music directing the show, so I was teaching everybody the music. And we had somebody fill in for the role of Father Christmas because the main actor, he was going to be out of town that weekend. And so I'm like, he's like really good. And I'm like, well, yeah, you caught on to that really well. He's like, yeah, I've done some music before. I'm like, okay, cool. Later I find out, yeah, he was on Broadway. Like freaking Roger and Rent. Met his wife on a touring version of Beauty and the Beast. I'm going, oh. So here I am just talking like, you're good at this. I'm sitting there playing piano, teaching him the music, and I'm like, you should teach me. What the heck is this? Like, oh, yeah, by the way, he was on Broadway.
Yeah, he's probably like, I've done this before. This exact version.
And he was just like, yeah, whatever. Just really cool about it. I mean, he was really nice. But he was just probably just thinking, oh, gosh, what does this girl think she's talking about?
I think it can be quite nice because I think people are very aware that they have an audience and that's it. And the people outside the audience, so it's just like, you know, and especially if it was a while ago, you kind of accept it. Probably people, they just don't know who you are. I mean, I'm always shocked when people don't know I'm famous. You know, I mean, you know, I'm always shocked. Like, you don't know who I am. I'm really famous. Ask that guy over there. Wait till I've left before you ask me. But ask that guy over there.
Yeah, you're like, I was Harry Potter Shadow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I should start telling people I'm famous. It'd be funny. Just start wearing sunglasses around everywhere. No, I'm more surprised. I'm more surprised that somebody actually knows who I am. Like, yeah, I went to middle school with you 3 years. Oh, yeah, you were in college with me every single class I had. Oh, yeah, of course you don't know who I am. Nobody knows who I freaking am.
Yeah, it's like, oh god, what is it? There's a cartoon, or no, it's a TV show, The Middle.
Okay, I know what Sue. Yeah,
Sue.
That
like,
is me, I swear. That is me. I am that much of a loser.
I'm kind of like, when people recognize me, I'm kind of go, oh, what have I done now? Kind of, it's not like, oh, I'm famous. I'm like, oh, shit, what have I done now? What am I going to be berated for today?
Yeah.
You know.
Instead of it being like, you're that guy that made that Zelda film that got 40,000 views on YouTube in a week, they're just like, hi.
Yeah.
Well,
no, it was kind of like that with the comments. Like, the first 6,000 hits when it went viral were really fun. Like, we're all kind of having like, and then it's just like, you know, you see, there's been, like, YouTube will email you every time you get a comment saying there's been some activity on your account. And I thought when you get loads, it would just put them all in one, but it doesn't. It's just every time you get an email. And so you see, there's been some new activity on your Zelda account. I'm like, oh God, what have they said now? You know, it really gets to that point of where you're going, oh no, this is something nice. Oh, that's really good. Oh, yeah. And you only feel as good as your last comment at that point. You know, you're kind of like, you know, was it good or bad? You know.
My all-time favorite comment I got on one of my Zelda news videos was, "Her face makes me angry." I was very proud of that. I'm impressed that just my face can make somebody angry.
The question is, were they jealous because you looked so good, or did their eyes burn because you're so ugly?
That's what I want to know. Or maybe I reminded them of an ex-girlfriend.
Person that made that comment, if you're watching this video...
If you're watching this video, I would like to know why my face makes you angry. Personally, I think it's hilarious that I have the ability to make you angry.
Maybe it was just your eyebrows that day.
Oh, okay, bad eyebrow day. Yeah, needed to get them waxed. Oh my gosh, I still laugh at that one. That one still makes me laugh.
Some of them made me laugh. You know, so I thought some of them were genuinely funny on my video. I was just kind of like, these guys know how to tell a joke. The joke will end up making me cry in the corner for about a week, but you know, it's a good joke.
All right. One last part of my topic. I would like to ask each of you if money and the time put in to make the costume wasn't an option, who would you want to cosplay as, or would you even cosplay? Because again, this goes back to the thing of the person that's afraid to let other people know how big of a fanboy they are. Because to a normal person, the idea of dressing up like some fantasy character and going out into public is terrifying. But after you get out of your car and you're in the parking lot, you're just another person dressed up. So do you think you would be able to get over that fear to dress up as your favorite character and go? And if so, who would you go as?
Well, I'm always up for dressing up. I love it. I think if money and time were not an option, I would want to be Ariel, as in Little Mermaid Ariel, complete with the kick-ass tail and seashells and all of that. That's what I would want to do.
And a water slide, and like a sedan chair, people just chucking water as you slide around the arena.
And I would want to do an awesome photo shoot in the pool or something, and swim around with a mermaid tail. That is what I would want.
You could bring a slip and slide everywhere you go, so you can just...
You know, the last time I went on the slip and slide, it was like me and my niece and my nephews, and I busted my knee so freaking hard. Like, even my nephew saw when I slid off of it. He's like, "Nanta, are you okay?"
Alright. What about you, Simon?
I would either have to go with a Colossus, from X-Men, if I could pull that off, or maybe Nightcrawler.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I was just thinking of Nightcrawler before you said, because I think my physicality would affect who I chose. If my physicality were an option, I know this is super uncool, but I am a big Superman fan. I love Superman. And every time I say that with people who love comics, they feel the need to tell me why Batman is better than Superman and how much they hate Superman because, you know, he's really strong. But if I could be any superhero, that's who I'd want to be, really. The guy, not the guy who has to try, the guy who doesn't have to try. You know, that would be, you know, why in my dreams am I working so hard and people are berating me?
Yeah.
You know,
because Batman, he has to train and work out and exercise to get in shape.
And the man is pathological. Right, that is not a stable psyche that you have. Normal man goes, I'll take some steroids, depends which comics you read, take some steroids, dress up as a bat, and then go around being a vigilante. That is not a man who's right in the head.
Yeah, true story.
But yeah, no, I would love to. I don't know, it's different things. I have like different moments when I'm kind of like want to be different people, I suppose. But I don't sure I could ever put the time in.
Right.
Kind of, so.
There's people that I've seen pulled it off way better than I have, especially in your video. And then one of my other favorite appearances of a live action Link is in the 3GI parody video where Grant Dufresne, I believe is his name, he plays Link, and it's the funniest video on YouTube because...
Is it the one with Dr. Emmett Brown in it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're part of the 3GI crew that I interviewed, and funny story, he said whenever he goes out and he gets stopped by people that's watched the video, they're like, oh my god, I'm a huge Zelda fan too, I watched your video. And he's like, well, I'm not actually that big of a Zelda fan. He's like, I've played a couple of the games, but not that huge into it. But yeah, I would obviously like to go as Link, but as of right now, I don't really have the right physique for it. I think I'm better off trying to go as
high-intensity interval training.
for somebody.
That's right, yeah. There was a reason for it in the show.
Well, it is important, especially for cosplayers. I mean, I'm sorry, that is an important aspect to even just have the energy to go all day at a con.
Yeah. Walking around for 8 hours, 3 days in a row.
Mm-hmm. Even though I don't cosplay, and I probably, you know, just wouldn't find the time to do it, but I kind of like watching these guys who put all of this effort into it, because it's kind of like, it's like filmmaking. When you make stuff, you appreciate other people who make stuff, you know, and kind of all the hard work and all the finishings and all the time that goes into it is what. And you know, sometimes it's I still like the people who've just put some tin foil and wrapped it around their arm, and they go like, oh yeah, I have a metal arm now. It's like, yeah,
imagination.
But no, it's fun and it's all part of the experience and it's all part of going there. Like when I had to go to a fancy dress party once, saying I would never go as Superman, I literally went in the cheapest outfit I could find, which was a Superman t-shirt and a suit. Right? And I literally just unbuttoned the suit and went, and they were not impressed at this. They were like, you lazy bastard. You know, but then in another way, I went as Superman to another thing because I was in an acting class and they said they wanted us to find a painting that we could then perform the scene around and make a tableau of that scene. And I could see everybody was taking it really seriously in the class. And I was just like, I want something a bit different. So I took an Alex Ross picture of Superman in. And I spent the entire day in the class in a suit, buttoned up. And I then got up onto the stage in front of everybody and I took off the entire suit and transformed into Superman. The studio manager then thought it was appropriate, and it was, to pick me up and then fly me around the studio like this. And it was kind of one of those moments that everybody hated me in that class, I don't know why. But then for a moment they liked me, and then they went back to hating me straight afterwards. But it was a nice moment.